January 10th, 1862. Colonel James A. Garfield is here at Middle Creek in southeastern Kentucky. He is outmanned, he's outgunned, and the Confederates have the higher ground. Things are not looking good for him, but his job, his task, is to clear southeastern Kentucky of an invading Confederate army. And he's going to do it today on January 10th, 1862, in a cold, muddy, miserable winter day.
Charge.
We're here at Middle Creek National Battlefield, which is in southeastern Kentucky, and I'm here with special guest, special friend, Bailey. Bailey, how do you know the guys?
I know the guys at Shady High School. I do flick at Shady. I do the pitching line. So, hi guys doing? I love you guys. I hope we can see you at Shady soon. So, did a good thing with our chat.
So thanks, Bailey, for coming along. Bailey has been one of my biggest supporters of my Civil War journal here, and so he's going to be along with us today as we talk about the Middle Creek battle at Middle Creek with Colonel James Garfield. But before we get to that battle, let's rewind just a little bit. Thanks, Bailey.
No problem.
For President Abraham Lincoln, New Year's of 1862 was not one full of hope and joy. Instead, the first year of office for the president was a series of emotional defeats. With his election, he saw 7 states secede from the Union, a disheartening loss at Fort Sumter, which led to 4 more additional states seceding, an embarrassing major defeat of Union forces at Bull Run, political fallout from the start of the war, an international crisis with the Trent Affair, and the dreadful realization that the war was going to last much longer than originally believed. Now, at the start of his second year of the war in 1862, Lincoln was gravely concerned by Confederate movement into southeastern Kentucky. The bluegrass state was pro-slavery, but had remained loyal to the Union. That loyalty, though, was delicate, and if Confederacy could establish a foothold in the Commonwealth, well, the Commonwealth would be in jeopardy of falling to the South. Kentucky could not be given up. Lincoln must have the state of his childhood. Seeing Confederate movement in southeastern Kentucky, Union General Don Carlos Buell ordered Colonel James A. Garfield to take his 42nd Ohio, as well as the 40th Ohio, 14th and 18th Kentucky, and the 1st Kentucky Cavalry to force the South into a retreat from Kentucky into Virginia. Garfield was a tremendous inspiration to his troops. His father had died when he was 2, and the colonel grew up in poverty. Unable to pay for his schooling, Garfield convinced a local prep school to allow him to work for his schooling as a janitor. However, James was so talented in the classroom that the school promoted him to a teacher, giving him 6 classes to teach himself. Although he was literally teaching his peers, his classes were so popular that the school will add 2 additional classes to his teaching load, all the while still being a student at the prep school. Upon graduation, James Garfield was accepted to Williams College and once more found quick success with graduating with honors in 2 years. Upon graduating from college, Garfield returned to his prep school to lead the school as the school's president at the age of 26. Building a reputation as a man of integrity, the Republican Party of Ohio convinced James to run for politics, and by the age of 28, he was elected to the state senate in 1860. When war broke out with the firing at Fort Sumter, Garfield was given command of the 42nd Ohio, a division on paper that had no one actually enlisted. So the former school president, at age 30, eagerly went to his former students and recruited them for the 42nd Ohio. I wonder if I could have the resolve to recruit you guys from my classroom. These are the men, though, along with 4 other regiments, for a total of 2,100 troops that he led into southeastern Kentucky in January 1862. Waiting for him was 2,500 Confederates under the command of Brigadier General Humphrey Marshall. Marshall, a West Point graduate that served in the war with Mexico, was a 4-term U.S. Congressman for Kentucky and practicing lawyer in Louisville. Yet, when war broke out, the Kentuckian was so upset that the Commonwealth went with the Union and not remain neutral, he enlisted with the Confederacy. Marshall knew he had around 500 more men than the pursuing Garfield, and a Confederate general developed a defensive line on the high ridges along the forks of Middle Creek. With a strong defensive position and nearly 500 more men, the Louisville lawyer was confident of holding the high ground. On the morning of January 10th, 1862, approaching Middle Creek and not completely confident in knowing of the Confederate positions, Colonel Garfield sent 20 of his cavalry into Middle Creek Valley, where they took heavy fire. However, this tactic gave Colonel Garfield the key intelligence of knowing where Marshall's 29th and 54th Virginia was, as well as his 5th Kentucky were all positioned.
So after days of hauling through mud all of their 4 artillery pieces, they brought them up to the top of this ridge right over here, and that's actually a very strong defensive position for the Confederates. It gave them this open field to blast Union troops coming, so the Union soldiers, they would have had to gone through this opening across the creeks and attack that ridge. But as the battle opened up on January 10th, the Union and the Confederates soon discovered those artillery shells weren't really doing much for the Confederates, because one reason why the artillery shells were, how old were they?
I did 20 years.
Over 20 years, which meant when they actually fired, since they were so old that those cannonballs were what?
Not bad.
Yeah, they were for the Confederates here at the Battle of Middle Creek.
Garfield ordered his Ohio regiments to attack the Virginians, but he also engaged his 18th Kentucky in an assault on the Confederate 5th Kentucky. Thus, the Battle of Middle Creek was one of the true moments in the Civil War of brother versus brother. And although the Confederates had superior numbers in a stronger position, by 5 p.m. they faltered and began to fall back. Humphrey, concerned that his troops would desert his ranks if he continued to fight, withdrew from the field in the darkness, burning his artillery wagons as he retreated. After all, they turned out to be useless anyway. The victory for the 30-year-old brave Union colonel, though, resulted in him being promoted to brigadier general and famous in the newspapers, as northern newspapers were quick to boast of Garfield's accomplishment of defeating a superior army.
So the battle here at Middle Creek did not have a lot of casualties. It's not going to have the numbers that you would see at Gettysburg or Antietam, but there is still the loss of human life. And for the Union, we're going to see how many dead, Bailey?
3.
That's right, 3 Union boys will be killed. And for the Confederates, there's going to be?
12.
12. So, I mean, it's still 15 lives that will be lost here at Middle Creek.
The numbers of the dead at Middle Creek are small in comparison to other battles in the war. Yet, Garfield's eyewitness account of the combat still left an emotional impact on him. He would later tell a friend that seeing the dead at Middle Creek, quote, "Something went out of me and never came back, the sense of sacredness of life," end quote. And although he painfully witnessed the horrors of war, it also gave him a stronger resolve in his commitment to the abolishment of the institution of slavery with this very war. Meanwhile, for President Lincoln, the immediate impact of Colonel Garfield's victory at Middle Creek in the Commonwealth of Kentucky is huge.
So for Abraham Lincoln, this victory is important because Kentucky meant something to Lincoln. I mean, the president was born here in the state. But right before the war, as Kentucky was determining whether it was going to be neutral, Union, or Confederate, Lincoln said this about the state of Kentucky. He said, "I hope to have God on my side, but
I have Kentucky.
I must have Kentucky. I hope to have God on my side, but I must have Kentucky. So this battle helped secure Eastern Kentucky for President Lincoln.
For Confederate Humphrey Marshall, the defeat destroyed his reputation, and a few months later he will resign his commission. However, he will re-enlist when Braxton Bragg invades Kentucky in the fall of 1862 at the Battle of Perryville, only to watch the Confederacy once more retreat from the bluegrass state. By the following summer, Marshall will resign again. Eventually, after the war, Humphrey Marshall will return to his Louisville law practice and die in Louisville in 1872. He is buried in Frankfort, Kentucky. James A. Garfield will run for Congress in the middle of 1862, but he refused to actually campaign for the position. Yet, his military success at Mill Creek made him a household name, a hero to the Union, and he will win in a landslide. When he arrived in Washington, the young general was hoping to receive a new military commission somewhere on the front. Instead, President Lincoln persuaded Garfield that his service would be of greater importance in the House. In Lincoln's view, he already had too many generals. What the president needed was a good military administrator in Congress. The Battle of Mill Creek will be given credit as the win that launched Garfield to the presidency. James A. Garfield will eventually become the nation's 20th president, winning the 1880 election. However, President Garfield's term in office will be cut short. Not even a year into his term, an unprotected, unguarded President Garfield, standing at a public train station, waiting on a train, will be shot twice. One bullet striking the president in the back, and the other bullet striking him in his arm. It was not even 16 years after the Lincoln assassination, but America had still not learned her lesson of keeping a president safe. Although medical science had developed some techniques that could have possibly saved the president, Garfield's doctor had no confidence in the medical advancements. Instead, the doctor probed the wound with unsterilized hands and unsterilized instruments in search of the bullet. Unable to remove the bullet while repeatedly continuing to probe the wound with unsanitized hands causing infections for the president, President Garfield, who was shot on July 2nd, 1881, will die September 19th, 1881, with his final months being tormented in pain and agony.
So the Battle of Mill Creek has huge ramifications for the Union. Even though it's a small, in essence, skirmish, it saves Kentucky for the Union. It's the first major victory for the Union in the beginning of 1862, and Lincoln has secured southeastern Kentucky for his wishes. Again, he hopes to have God on his side, but he has to have Kentucky. Thanks, guys, for being a part of this journey. Thank you, Bailey, for also being a part of this journey with me.
No problem.
Remember to hit those notifications, hit that subscribe, follow along. And as always, how we close all these videos, remain awesome,
Be nice.
stay safe. Thanks, Bailey.
No problem.
Keep going! Keep going!
To find out more about the Special Olympics and how to become a volunteer, see their website.
And Union won, so that's my favorite part.
That was your favorite part?
Yeah.
And most importantly, did you have fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I had a lot of fun with you as well.
Oh yeah.
All right.